My sisters, listen to me clearly. There is a kind of woman who doesn't shout to be seen, who doesn't argue to prove her worth, who doesn't run to explain herself when misunderstood. But don't mistake her stillness for surrender. Don't confuse her silence for submission to defeat. Her silence is strategy. Her quietness is warfare. Her stillness is the sound of God working behind the curtain. See, when a woman goes silent, she's not backing down, she's tuning into the frequency of heaven, listening for divine instructions, because she knows that reaction is not the same as revelation. She understands that when she holds her tongue, she's holding her power. She's not a woman to play with, because the woman who can stay silent has mastered herself. The one who doesn't need applause has already heard from God. The one who walks away without explanation has already won the battle in the spirit. When she stays silent, it's not because she has nothing to say. It's because she knows when to say it. It's because she doesn't waste her words on ears that weren't assigned to hear her voice. You may not see her crying anymore. That doesn't mean she's not fighting. You may not hear her begging anymore, but that doesn't mean she's not believing. You may not see her posting anymore, but that doesn't mean she's not preparing. She's dangerous because she doesn't have to announce her comeback. She lets her fruit speak. She lets her peace speak. She lets her elevation speak. So the next time you see a woman who's gone quiet, don't assume she's broken. Don't assume she's given up. There is a sacred strength that often goes unnoticed in this loud, chaotic, and noisy world, and that strength is silence. It's not celebrated. It doesn't get applause. You won't find it trending, and it rarely makes headlines. The woman who walks in silence is often the one who carries the most wisdom. Let me say it loud and clear: silence is not weakness. It is not surrender. It is not a sign of defeat. In fact, for the discerning woman, silence is wisdom in motion. It is a holy pause, a divine restraint. It's the sacred decision to not waste energy on battles that don't require her sword. It's the strength to know that not every attack deserves a reaction. Every conversation requires her voice. You see, the world has taught us that being loud means being powerful, that the louder you are, the more important you must be. But heaven sees differently. Heaven understands that true strength is not found in volume, but in vision. True wisdom doesn't scream, it sees. It waits, it discerns. Silence for the wise woman is not empty, it's full of awareness, full of strategy, full of faith. When a woman chooses silence, she is not choosing to bow down, she is choosing to rise above. She's saying, I refuse to be baited into foolishness. I won't let my emotions pull me into places that my spirit has already left. I'm not here to prove a point. I'm here to fulfill a purpose. When the children of Israel were marching around the walls of Jericho, they didn't shout every day. No, they walked in silence for 6 days. Obedience in silence, movement in silence, faith in silence. And then on the 7th day, when the shout was finally released, the walls fell. What's the lesson? Sometimes your silence is not the absence of action. It is the preparation for breakthrough. You see, wisdom is knowing when to speak and when to be silent. Wisdom understands timing. The right word at the wrong time can destroy what God is trying to build. The right silence at the right moment can confuse the enemy and align you with heaven's agenda. A woman who has learned the value of silence is a woman who has learned to trust God more than her own tongue. She knows that silence doesn't mean she's scared. It means she's secure. Secure in who she is. Secure in who God is. Secure enough to know that vindication doesn't come from her voice. It comes from her victory. And let me remind you, Jesus himself remained silent in front of Pilate. The Son of God, with all authority in his mouth, chose not to argue, not to defend, not to retaliate. Why? Because he knew that silence wasn't weakness. It was strategy. He didn't need to speak. His resurrection would do the talking. Some of you are in a season right now where people are wondering why you've gone quiet. You used to post everything. You used to defend yourself every time someone lied. You used to fight to be heard. But now you've grown. Now you've matured. Now you've realized that silence can be louder than any argument. You don't have to speak in every room. You don't have to respond to every critic. You don't have to fight every false rumor. Let your silence speak. Let your fruit speak. Let your peace speak. Let your progress speak. You see, the enemy doesn't know what to do with a woman who refuses to be rattled. He expects you to panic. He expects you to lash out. He expects you to break down. When you remain silent, when you worship instead of worry, when you pray instead of panic, when you move in purpose without needing attention, you disarm the enemy. That kind of silence is not passive, it's powerful. It says, I don't need to announce every move. I don't need to broadcast every plan. I don't need to clap back. I've learned that God fights better than I do. Sister, when you've been through enough storms, you learn that silence is not the absence of a voice, it's the presence of authority. Silence means you've been through the fire and come out refined. Silence means your confidence is no longer in man's opinion. It's anchored in God's promise. It takes strength to stay silent. It takes maturity to stay silent. It takes wisdom to hold your tongue when your flesh wants to explode. But every time you choose silence, you are choosing a higher path. Every time you hold your peace, you are declaring, I trust that God is handling what I can't see. Don't let the world tell you that your silence means you've lost. No, it means you're winning in a different dimension. You're winning battles in the spiritual realm that will soon manifest in the natural. You're listening to the voice of God instead of the noise of people. And one day, not too long from now, these same people who misunderstood your silence will have to watch the blessing that your stillness unlocked. Because when you allow silence to be your sanctuary, you give heaven permission to move on your behalf. A woman of wisdom doesn't rush into reaction. She doesn't panic when the storm starts swirling. She doesn't run to the crowd when the pressure rises. No, she steps back. She withdraws. She retreats not in fear, but in focus, because she knows that silence isn't a sign of giving up, it's a sign of gearing up. Woman who chooses silence over shouting, stillness over scrambling, prayer over panic is not being passive, she's being precise. She understands that battles aren't always won with loud voices. Some are won in quiet chambers, on bruised knees, whispered prayers and silent tears that only God sees. You see, silence is a spiritual strategy. It's not for the weak, it's for the war ready. And when a woman learns to be silent when everything in her wants to scream, that's not suppression. That's self-control. That's not fear, that's faith in action. Let me tell you something that the devil doesn't know what to do with a woman who uses silence as her sword. He expects her to rant. He expects her to lose her mind. He expects her to crumble. When she retreats into her quiet place, when she shuts the door to the world and opens her heart to heaven, that woman becomes untouchable. She's not hiding from the battle. She's preparing for victory. Her silence is not emptiness. It's download time from heaven. While others are talking, she's tuning in. While others are panicking, she's praying. While others are scrambling for answers, she's soaking in God's direction. You have to understand, not every battle is yours to fight publicly. Not every situation requires your voice. Some victories are quiet ones. Some shifts happen in the secret place, and some moves are birthed in the silence of strategy. The enemy hates a silent woman because she's unpredictable. He can't trace her steps. He can't anticipate her reaction. He can't trigger her into chaos because she's anchored in discernment. When a woman starts moving in discernment instead of dysfunction, hell gets nervous. You don't always have to announce your next move. You don't always have to justify your silence. Sometimes the strategy is in the mystery. Sometimes the strength is in what you don't say. Because when a woman learns to withhold words, she preserves power. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Silent. Anchored, trusting. That is the strategy of the kingdom, because the world will tell you, speak your mind. But heaven says, guard your mouth. The world says, defend yourself. But heaven says, let me handle it. And when God handles it, no man can undo it. She's quiet, Achai, because she's being coached by the Spirit. She's not ignoring you. She's being instructed. And that's dangerous. That's powerful. When she emerges from her silence, she comes out with strategy. with clarity, with fire, and with vision. Her silence is not the end of her voice, it's the beginning of a greater volume. Because when she finally speaks, it won't be emotion, it'll be authority. When she finally moves, it won't be chaos, it'll be calculated. When she finally decides, it won't be reaction, it'll be revelation. Enough. And don't be surprised if while she was silent, she grew in strength. Don't be shocked when her silence gave birth to ideas, healing, new habits, and care enough and new levels of power, because she wasn't doing nothing. She was doing the most important thing, aligning with the will of God. Enough. Her value isn't determined by visibility. Her strength isn't tied to applause. Her identity isn't dependent on followers' fame or titles. She knows who she is even when no one else sees her. This woman is dangerous because she's not looking for the stage. She's building something deeper. While others are climbing ladders to be recognized, she's digging roots so she can last. While the world is chasing fame, she's chasing faithfulness. Care enough. While others need validation, she already has vision, doesn't need a platform to feel powerful. She doesn't need a microphone to have a voice. She doesn't need a spotlight to shine, because she knows that what's done in secret carries more weight in the spirit than what's shouted from rooftops. She doesn't mind being unseen by man because she knows she's already been seen by God. She doesn't need to post every move or prove her worth. She's not trying to convince anybody. She's walking in conviction, because real confidence doesn't come from compliments. It comes from calling. Let me remind you, some of the most powerful people in the Bible were hidden for a season. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he ever led a nation. David was anointed king, but went back to tending sheep before he ever sat on a throne. Esther was unknown in the palace until God uncalled her to save her people. And care enough. Hidden doesn't mean forgotten. Unseen doesn't mean unimportant. Low profile doesn't mean low impact. Enough. She understands this. So she doesn't get bitter when others get recognized before her. She doesn't shrink when she's overlooked. She doesn't quit when she's not invited, because she knows the anointing works in silence. The oil flows in private. God often hides his greatest weapons. And care enough, he tucks them away where they can grow without pressure, mature without performance, and be refined without public eyes. Because when he finally reveals them, care enough, they are ready, not just ready to be seen, but ready to be effective. This woman is not waiting to be called out. She's already called. Enough. She's not addicted to being admired. She's anchored in her assignment. And because she knows who she is, she can afford to let others take the stage. Knowing her power was never tied to perception. It was birthed in presence. She doesn't envy the noise because she's built for depth. Care enough, she doesn't crave attention because she's focused on alignment. She's not running to be seen by people. She's walking in obedience to be used by God. Some of the battles she fights will never be posted. Some of the seeds she plants will never carry her name. She's the mother who pours into her children when no one is clapping. She's the entrepreneur who's building legacy while others are chasing likes. She's the intercessor who breaks chains in prayer while staying anonymous in public. She's the visionary who keeps working the vision even when nobody else sees it yet. The world doesn't understand a woman like this. Karen, in a culture that rewards loudness, visibility, and nonstop opinions, a silent woman feels like a mystery, even a threat. But that's exactly what she is. A holy threat to darkness, because she doesn't fight like everyone else. She fights in the spirit, not in the spotlight. Her silence is not an absence of action. It is spiritual positioning. It is her way of saying, I don't have to explain myself. And care enough, I don't have to entertain foolishness. I don't have to fight the way the world fights. Care enough, because I have another weapon, a sacred one, and it's silence. A woman who has learned how to stay silent in the face of provocation is a woman who has learned how to walk in power. She has mastered the ability to pause before she responds, pray before she reacts, and listen before she speaks. That kind of woman is not just wise. She's dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Her silence is full of movement, not outward, inward. She is waging war in the invisible realm. She is discerning what the naked eye cannot see. She is leaning into what the Holy Spirit is saying, care enough, instead of what her emotions are screaming. Let me tell you, the enemy doesn't fear a noisy woman. He fears a disciplined woman, care enough. A woman who can be wronged and still walk away in grace. A woman who be attacked but chooses to intercede instead of interfere enough. A woman who can sit silently before God and wait for his timing rather than forcing her own way. She knows that every battle doesn't deserve her voice. Care enough. Every offense doesn't require her explanation. Every confrontation doesn't need her energy. Because some battles are won through silence and surrender to God. And care and Bible. When the Israelites were trapped between Pharaoh's army and the Red Sea, God didn't tell them to fight. He didn't tell them to scream. He said in Exodus 14:14, the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. There is something heavenly about holy silence. It says, God, I trust you more than my voice. I trust your plan more than my pain. I trust that if I stay in position, care enough, you will handle what I cannot. That kind of trust is rare. That kind of faith is strong, and care enough. And that kind of silence is not silence at all. It is a roar in the realm of the Spirit. This woman is no longer ruled by her feelings. She's ruled by her faith. She doesn't swing at every insult. She doesn't clap back at every comment. Care enough. She doesn't give her energy to every fire the enemy starts. Why? Because she's not living for reaction. She's living from revelation. Self-control is not weakness. It's warfare. It's the ability to feel every storm inside of you and yet not let it take over. It's knowing you could say something, but choosing silence instead. It's knowing you could retaliate, but choosing peace. Care enough. It's knowing you're right, but still choosing righteousness. Let me tell you something. It takes strength to stay quiet when your flesh is raging. It takes maturity to sit still when everything in you wants to get up and run. It takes spiritual power to say, God, care enough. I can handle this, but I choose my way. She is mastering self-control because she has tasted what happens when you live without it. She's been burned by impulsive decisions. She's seen what happens when you let your anger speak before your wisdom can answer. Care enough. She's felt the regret follows words that were never meant to be spoken. And so now she's learning. She's growing. Care enough. She's being stretched by the Holy Spirit, not to make her perfect, but to make her purposeful. Not to make her emotionless, but to make her anchored. Care enough. You don't hear her yelling anymore. You don't see her explaining herself to everybody. She's not rushing into things without discernment because she understands now that self-control is a fruit of the Spirit, not a suggestion. It's a divine sign that you are maturing, transforming. Care enough and stepping into your God-ordained identity. You can have all the talent in the world, but without self-control, you'll destroy what you were meant to build. And care enough. You can be called, but without discipline, you'll collapse under the weight of your own emotions because she has discovered that the enemy isn't always after her voice. Sometimes he's after her reaction. He doesn't need her to fall. He just needs her to step out of alignment. And nothing pulls a woman out of spiritual alignment faster than unchecked emotions. When people try to push her, she remembers her boundaries. When pressure comes to make her panic, she remembers her peace. When confusion tries to cloud her judgment, she waits on God's timing. Care enough. Because self-control is not about suppressing feelings. It's about submitting them. It's about taking every thought captive, bring it under obedience, and letting the Spirit of God rule over every room in her soul. She has learned that when she is under pressure, her greatest weapon isn't her words. It's her restraint. Her greatest response isn't her argument. It's her alignment. She doesn't shout anymore. She shifts atmospheres by her composure. Care enough. You see, her power isn't just in what she says. It's in what she chooses not to say. Her strength isn't only in what she does. It's in what she refuses to do. Not because she's perfect, but because she's surrendered enough. Not because she never feels the fire, but because she refuses to let it consume her. And when you meet a woman like that, a woman who is secure enough to pause, wise enough to wait, and strong enough to walk away when needed, you're looking at a woman who has dominion over her destiny. She has mastered the art of spiritual posture. She's in control, not of the world, but of herself. And that kind of mastery can only come time spent with the master. So no, she may not be loud. She may not be impulsive. She might not be dramatic, but she is disciplined. She is dangerous. She is divinely trained. They looked at the silence, the suffering, the season of stillness, and assumed she was finished. They judged her pause as a permanent place. They misread her quiet as quitting. Care enough. They mistook her delay for a denial. It won't be the apology. It won't be with noise. It will be with evidence. She doesn't need to convince them. She doesn't need to post a response. She doesn't need to cry about what was lost, because her comeback's about to say what her words never could. You see, there is something holy about a woman who rises again, a woman who's been broken and bruised but not buried, and care enough, a woman who's walked through fire and didn't come out smelling like smoke, a woman who survived betrayal, disappointment, heartbreak, and a delay, and still got up. That kind of woman is not just strong, she's anointed. She's not just healed, she's commissioned. She's not just back, she's better. It won't be small, it won't be soft, it will be undeniable. It will be prophetic. It will be redemptive. Care enough. And you may have counted her out, sure, but God was counting the days until the oil was ready, the days until the healing was complete, the days until the vision was matured, the days until her name matched her assignment. See, the most powerful thing about her comeback isn't what she's doing. It's what she survived to get here. You don't know the therapy, the fasting, the journaling, the warfare, the loneliness, the battles no one else saw. She was bleeding, but still serving. She was tired, but still believing. She was grieving, but still growing. And now, the harvest is here. Now, the evidence is about to speak. Care enough, well, she doesn't even have to say a word, because blessing has a sound all its own. Elevation doesn't need an explanation. Restoration doesn't need to be rehearsed. When God raises you, the same people who dismissed you will be convicted by your fruit. The same ones who mocked you will be silenced by your mission. The same rooms that once ignored, you will have to make space for you. Her scars have become strategy. Her losses have become lessons. Her isolation has become intimacy with God. Not because she's loud, not because she's flashy, but because she knows who she is, because she knows who her God is, because she knows what she survived to stand here. Enough. And when you know what you survived, when you know what almost took you out, when you know how close you came to quitting, but didn't hit, there's a glory on your life that can't be faked. Don't be surprised when she shows up with joy. Don't be confused when she walks with favor. Don't be shocked when her presence carries peace. And enough, because this woman has returned whole, louder than pain, louder than critics, louder than her past, louder than her silence, louder than her enemies.